Okay, we will call this regular council meeting to order at 3 p.m. and I would ask Councillor Hystad to please read the land acknowledgement.
Thanks, Mayor Barkley. The town of Innisfil acknowledges that we are meeting on Treaty 7 territory, the ancestral and traditional territory of the Blackfoot Confederacy, Kainai, Piikani, and Siksika, as well as the Tsuut'ina First Nation and Stoney Nakoda First Nation. We acknowledge that this territory is home to the Métis Nation of Alberta, Region 3 with the historical Northwest Métis homeland. We acknowledge the many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit who have lived and cared for these lands for generations. We are grateful for the traditional knowledge keepers and elders who are still with us today and those who have gone before us. We make this acknowledgement as an act of reconciliation and gratitude to those whose territory we reside on.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to welcome everybody back after the Thanksgiving long weekend, and hopefully everybody had a great weekend. So we'll move into 2.1. Any additions or deletions to the agenda? No. Can I please have someone make a motion to adopt the agenda? Councillor Dunham.
Mayor Barkley, I'll make that motion.
Okay, thank you. All in favor? Carried. And we'll move into 3.1, the regular council meeting minutes for September 25th. Councillor Bates.
I'll move those minutes approved as written.
Okay, thank you. Any changes?
Yes, sorry.
Councillor Maceras.
Mayor Barkley. I ended up not attending the Sylvan Lake function. Thank you.
Okay, could I please have someone?
I'll move the minutes as amended by that change.
Okay, thank you. All in favor? Okay, carried. And then 3.2, the agenda priorities meeting minutes for October 3rd. Just need a motion for that, please. Councillor Wing.
Yes, Mayor Barkley, I'll move those minutes.
Okay, thank you. All in favor? Okay, carried. And we'll move into 4.1. So I'm very pleased to welcome Marion Davidson here today to speak to us about the Seniors Community Garden. Welcome.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to say that we don't consider ourselves a seniors community garden anymore. We consider ourselves intergenerational. So just, I just wanted to let you know that. I'm Marion Davidson, and I'm here as a member of the Innisfil and District Garden Club, and more specifically to update the council on the Innisfil Community Garden and Community Greenhouse. My passion for years has been growing food. I just want to give a little bit of background and history. Innisfil Community Garden and Greenhouse is located in the park behind Dodds Manor in the corner of 59th Street and 49th Avenue, for anybody that doesn't know where we are. The community garden has been operating about 15 years. It started with a committee of the Innisfil and District Garden Club. The town had partnered with them, providing paved walkways around a couple of open areas, and some soil was brought in to start a garden. I joined 13 years ago. In the next couple of years, we completed a garden facelift with the building of 20 raised beds and a 3-bin compost. Next, we added 2 community beds still open to the public today. As a centennial project, we added our sharing shed with a grant from the town, and we planted a hedge of honeyberries or haskaps open to the public to pick. We joined in the town's efforts to make our garden more intergenerational and dementia-friendly and more inclusive by inviting families of all ages and abilities to garden with us. The garden has experienced deer problems over the last 5 years, as many people know, and we tried everything to deter them from using our gardens as their buffet. The gardeners began to leave because of this. In 2022, we tried a temporary fence, and that seemed to really help. So this year we built a more permanent game fence around the entire area, containing the beds, plots, and greenhouse locations. Our deer fence is still in the final stages, hopefully to yet be completed this late fall. I'm happy to report we have had no deer problems this year. In 2021, we received a MOST grant from the town, and with a group of community volunteers built a Planta greenhouse kit, 30 by 10 feet. Just prior to this, we had 3 greenhouse locations prepared to allow our greenhouse to operate 3 seasons. The greenhouse was reinforced around the bottom and built to include 4 wheels and jacks on either side for ease in moving it. We learned later that we only required 2 locations for the 3 seasons. We built permanent in-the-ground beds in each location. We now rent out these beds to a total of 20 over the 3 seasons in both greenhouse locations. Since 2021, we have experimented with many crops to see what will grow in extended seasons and what our surrounding community desires to eat. I've been working the beds that have not rented. We are gradually attracting more people to rent. For the 2024 spring crop, we've already rented half the greenhouse beds and 2 of the 8 summer location ones. I've also experimented at marketing their produce locally for a suggested donation price. This way, we've been able to sustainably maintain all of our greenhouse costs. I pick once weekly from the unrented beds. Leftovers are taken to the food bank along with any weekly surplus from the community garden. This helps prevent waste. The 2 locations allow a growing season from mid-March now to mid-November. This year in 2023, in our community garden, we added 5 higher raised beds and 2 beds for children. In total to date, we have 27 raised beds. 7 of these, excluding our children's beds, were built higher to accommodate anyone who may have difficulty bending to garden. We also offer 11 plots, 10 by 20. In 2023, all community garden spaces were rented, and all are already rented for 2024. Friday, we moved our greenhouse to the North Winter location. Our community garden just closed for the season yesterday. Our fall work bee was held on Saturday the 7th, and we had 20 gardeners to help us with year-end chores. I just want to mention partners over the years that have really helped us. These include the Lions Club and the Elks Club, who helped with the funding of the initial raised beds and the first compost. The Innisfil Co-op, who helped with the designing and building of our sharing shed. And most recently, we are grateful to Johns Manville for their financial help with the building of the deer fence, and to the men's shed for their donation of 1 new higher raised bed and a bench which is presently being installed outside the garden facing in. We also appreciate Dodds Manor next door for partnering with us to catch water from their roof for the greenhouse, and for all their tenants who garden with us and offer their help in our garden, and who sample our greenhouse crops on a regular basis for donations. Also, our recycle company to the north, who supplied us with a water tote to catch rainwater from Dodds Manor and 4 barrels to irrigate our greenhouse. And to the food bank for always graciously receiving and distributing what surplus food we have to offer. And of course, our garden club has always had our back, and been there for us, accepting and handling all our money, and hearing and distributing our monthly reports, and much, much more. I also want to give acknowledgement to our individual donors who have given everything from money to tools to barrel compost to rabbit manure to pre-built beds to perennial plants to a lawnmower this year, and as well as all the time that many volunteers have freely given. We are so grateful. And continuing still in the spirit of community and thanksgiving, and last and mostly, today I wish to extend our very most sincere gratitude to our town of Innisfil. You have been our biggest partner from the beginning. In addition to all that already mentioned, the town has provided our first 4 water barrels to catch water from our shed, and ongoing larger water tanks filled as required for our dry times. Also, the annual rototilling of the plots. Recently, your operations department has helped us with the preparation of the 2 greenhouse locations, the supplying of the posts for our deer fence, and the bracing of the fence and weed whacking along the fence. Very recently, we were given 2 benches for inside the garden area, which are very much appreciated by all gardeners. And as I speak, the placement of a donated men's shed bench outside the garden looking inward. In the continued spirit of community and thanksgiving, I just want to say how grateful we are for all your help. And now I'd like to give a special shout out to Mayor Jean Barclay, who has always promoted our efforts from early on in our development, and to Steve Kennedy and Brad Wilson for always being so accommodating and pleasant to work with. Thank you, thank you, thank you, Town of Innisfail.
Well, thank you, Marion Davidson. Marion, thank you so much for everything you do, you and Jim, and all your volunteers. I know how hard you all work at the community garden. I think it's come a long ways the last few years, and I remember somebody losing some flowers that were quite special to her at one point in time, and I think the relationship has really blossomed with the town, as you've said, and when you describe what's going on down there, it just resonates with me, because that's really what community capacity building is, and you've done that in spades. So thank you so much for coming and giving this report today, and all I can say is wow.
My pleasure.
Very impressive, yeah. Anybody else have any comments? Councillor Heistad?
I'd like to say I've seen it grow and change the last few years, but the last few years with the greenhouse and everything, like just the work of, you know, of yourself and the volunteers it's been neat to see, because I walk by probably every second or third day on that area, and it's really transformed that that area. At one time, being a young punk, it wasn't, you know, there wasn't a lot of time and effort put into that area, and now you can see a lot more life and effort, especially the last 15 years. So thanks it was nice having you thank us in the town and the mayor and Stephen and our staff and Brad, because sometimes we don't get that sitting around here. It's usually, you know, sometimes people are upset with us or want to question something, which is all right. But thanks for the acknowledgement as a community.
You're welcome.
Councillor Maceros?
Thank you, Mayor Barclay. Thank you for coming to give that report. I didn't realize the extent of what was happening with that community garden and all of the areas that you've reached into. And I just want to say thank you for your report and for all that you're doing.
Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you again so much for coming and for all you do for the community, and we appreciate it so much. So we will hopefully continue on with this great relationships. Thank to Director Kennedy and his team for all that they're doing down there too, and that's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Okay, right. Have a good day. All right, we will move on to 5.1 with CEO Becker and his report.
Thanks, Mayor Barclay. Hello, Council. Just a few items, Council, for your attention, and then certainly open up to any questions from you. I did attend a EFL Energy Futures Lab Fellowship Workshop in Canmore right before the AM convention. Right before the workshop, EFL made a statement or announcement that they're going to be making adjustments to the fellowship program, which will not be taking any more applications. However, still we'll be inviting involvement of a fellowship-related group, more in the form of potentially an advanced ambassador program. I don't have all the details to that, but they're just looking to focus more. They're looking to be more agile, more specific. They hit a lot of different topics within their realm. They like to grab 3 or 4 different areas and really focus in and like to be more agile. Fellowship, I believe, is quite important with that direct feedback from the different stakeholders. However, there's a lot of effort and energy required to make that happen. So once I get more specific detail, I'll be happy to share that with you, just for your ongoing commitment to the FL, just let you know what's going on there. Administration is seeking council direction if there's a desire to submit to the Alberta Utilities Commission, AUC, regarding their work they're doing and regarding the moratorium. Council's had some detailed conversation as of recent on the moratorium. Attached is a bulletin from the AUC outlining the work that they're doing regarding the government's legislation, giving them guidance for the inquiry process. Have not heard back from the AUC on specifics on process steps and timeframes on the different pieces, but certainly looking forward to that feedback from them. But the way council can participate would be through completing an online survey, providing submissions in writing and providing submissions orally at an in-person session. So planting the seed with council right now. You may not move into more formal direction today, but certainly open up dialogue with you, council, if there's interest in moving towards submitting to the AUC inquiry process.
I believe CEO Becker on their website now, they have the meeting date set up, so that Red Deer is a location
Oh, excellent.
for in-person for Module A. So I would think it'd be advisable for the town to be present and do an oral submission. Or what are your thoughts?
When is it, Mayor Barkley? Do you mind me asking?
Don't recall off the top of my head. I'm going to say November was
Okay.
the one in Red Deer, but so we can look into it and maybe,
Maybe if council wishes, our administration could come back with a little bit more
Yeah,
detail.
sure.
And maybe provide some advice for you to consider to help with some potential presentation.
yeah, that would be perfect.
Okay.
Do you want a motion for that, or
No, I'm
you'll
good
just
right
bring
now.
it back?
Yeah, I'm good right now,
okay.
Mayor Council.
Yeah, I think there's only 3 locations in all of Alberta, and one is Red Deer, so.
And just with the rest of the report, Mayor Barkley, just a reminder for council to submit your committee preference sheets to Anita onto to the legislative coordinator sooner than later. Next Monday, we'd like to give you that results of those submissions.
Yes. I think everybody's are close. Everybody's, okay. Okay. And then do you want to mention the Hirsch Reamer
Yeah,
engagement?
definitely. So as you know, council, next, 2 things happening. One on, is it tomorrow?
No.
Thursday. So Thursday is the community conversations. We're going to have the ATCO Gas, Fortis, the advocacy group. Actually, also the town of Innisfil will be present to talk about our utility invoicing. So that is one event. Hopefully we can see council there and certainly spread the word on that important engagement. It'll be pretty light on presentation, but more opportunity to have the people engage with the respective companies. A little bit of presentation at the onset. And then on the 18th is the Hirsch Reamer engagement, which is a big deal for our community. Asking council to consider plug-in the event, and we can give you that information if you need it to help raise the participant numbers at the event. And if you need anything, let us know, but certainly a plug from council to your connections would be great.
Great, thank you. Could I please have someone make a motion that we accept CEO report as information? Councillor Maceras.
I'd like to move that council approves the Chief Administrative Officer report dated October 10th, 2023 as information.
Okay, thanks. Does anybody have any questions, comments? No, all in favor? Okay, carried. Then we will move on to council action control. Just going to mention one thing on here, that the mental health thing, like that's kind of been on there for a year and a half. I don't know that we're really doing anything in that avenue, so maybe it should just disappear, like, or.
Mayor Barkley, we are doing,
Oh, are you?
this is
Okay.
part of the
Sorry.
safe and community
Okay,
wellbeing
sorry.
plan. So we could certainly strike it. I just want to create awareness that it's molding into the planning process through Fire and Protective Services and the rest of the team.
Okay.
But we can mark it red, but it is captured within the work we're doing.
Well, maybe even like change the verbiage in it a little bit, and maybe that it's tied into the, just so if anybody's looking, they know, like it's, I think originally we kind of talked about having a round table with council and stuff, and then, so we don't need to do that when you're doing this other, but just so it kind of identifies exactly what we're doing. And
Yeah, would council consider, striking it red as complete? It is within a roundtable discussion process at the moment. Just so council's aware it is captured. But
Sure, yeah, no, whatever works. I didn't, I guess, tie those two in together,
Yeah.
so, yeah. Sorry,
It's okay.
Mayor Barkley?
yes.
Through to CEO Becker, And just because we're going to be talking about the housing assessment report later, we used to have on our action control, a meeting with developers and realtors and whatever regarding future development in Innisfil. And I don't see it anymore, and I don't remember that we decided that we weren't going to proceed with that. But it's not here now, but is it possible for us, when we go through the report later on, to put it back on the list if we decide that it's still something we need to do?
Definitely, Councillor Wing, if that's, can't give you the history why it's not there, but certainly if that's what council wishes to do in regard to the assessment, or it's certainly up to your directive if you wish to advance that action.
Councillor Hystad?
Yeah, we're just on the council, this paperwork, right? I would agree with Councillor Wing. As to the mental health discussion, I think, just correct me if I'm wrong, CEO Becker, it's just working with the policing, fire and protective services and policing committee, am I right? Or is that something that Chief Leith is working on?
Member Berkeley, to Councillor Hystad, it's part of the safe communities and well-being plan. That's where it's put into, and the roundtable discussions have started. Mental health is part of it. That sort of captures, it's under the management of the fire and protective services manager, but my point is it's being consolidated into that engagement with the community.
Okay, all right, no, that's good. And then I got another question in regards to Varma public participation. I know that this one's been on here for a while, and how are we looking at tackling, looking after this in the near future? I know that we're ongoing discussions with Varma, but I was just wondering, what do we see as the next steps? And I would direct that to CEO Becker, of course.
Mayor Barclay, Councillor Hystad, yeah, certainly seeking your input. This has been a standing item. If council wishes to advance more public consultation, certainly look for your advisements. Right now, we have not done a recent release or engagement process with the community in regarding the projects. Right now, it's been really slated towards engagement at the government level and other stakeholders, such as other municipalities in support of Varma project. But specifically to Innisfil, we have not, probably last few months, have advanced any specific public engagement processes.
Yeah, I guess my final comments would be, I am aware that Varma or Sean Collins has met with the Fed, my understanding he's met with some of the federal government leaders as well as provincial leaders, and I see that we should be tying that all together whenever whenever the plan is to initiate Varma coming into our community. But I've brought up the fact that I still do believe that there's a responsibility, not only a federal, provincial, and a council responsibility is to understand the project in Norway as well. And that's one of the things that I think it should be on the radar. And I'm going to remind our council that every couple months, so that we really know what we're getting into, and making sure our public is aware and they feel it's a good project. I already feel like it's a good project, but there's a lot more work to it. So those are my last questions on this council resolution, action control. Thanks.
Okay, could I please have someone make a motion that we accept the action control as information, please? Councillor Bates?
Sure. I'll move that we accept this for information.
Perfect, thank you. All in favor? Okay, carried. And then we'll move into 5.3 and the Chamber of Commerce strat plan.
So Mayor Barclay, at the council, was not my intent to dissect the strat plan with you. Is more or less to identify it as a document that was supplied by the Chamber of Commerce to Mayor and Council. So just providing you a little bit more detail, some of the history, and just making sure it's highlighted through an RFD process. Once Council's complete, just consider accepting the report as information.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Councillor Bates?
Just from my perspective, it looks like a good strategic plan, and I just wish them well with their implementation.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? No? Okay, please have a motion then to accept the strat plan as information. Councillor Wing?
Yeah, Mayor Barkley, excuse me, I would move that council accept the Innisfil Chamber of Commerce strategic plan as information.
Okay, thank you. All in favor? Okay, carried. And we will move into 6.1, changing gears here to Director Vickers and budget policy.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Barkley. So last week at the October 3rd AMP meeting, administration did bring forward a new draft budget policy for council to review and provide feedback. Council reviewed and no changes were noted, so administration is now looking for council to approve formally 2023-009, the budget policy. There is one item that will be tagged upon the passing of this, is that in early 2024, administration will conduct research and provide council with options regarding citizen engagement to be completed for the 2025 budget cycle.
Okay, thank you, Director Vickers. So we saw this last week at AMP. Could I please have someone make a motion and then we can have a discussion? Councillor Dunham?
Mayor Barkley, I move the council approves the 2023-008 budget policy.
Okay, any further comments, discussion about this? No? Okay, all in favor? All right, thank you. And we'll move on to 6.2 with the surplus policy.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Barkley. So again, last week at the AMP meeting, administration did bring forward a new draft allocation of operating budget surplus policy for council to review and provide feedback. Council reviewed, there was no changes were noted, so we are now looking for formal approval of our allocation of operating budget surplus policy.
All right, thank you. Could I please have someone make the recommended motion? Councillor Maceras?
Thank you, Mayor Barkley. I'd like to move that council approves policy 2023-009, allocation of operating budget surplus.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? No, all in favor? Okay, carried, unanimous. And we'll move on to 6.3, the Parkland Regional Library budget.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Barkley. So I'm bringing the proposed 2024 budget for the Parkland Regional Library for council to review and approve. So the town of Innisfil has an agreement with the Parkland Regional Library to provide library services within the town. The projected 2024 budget submission is an annual process and has been developed in compliance with the Libraries Act and the Parkland Regional Library's budget policy. For 2024, there was a 43-cent increase to the municipal per capita requisition to $9.18. Parkland held the requisition at $8.55 for 3 consecutive years, and then in 2023 saw a 20-cent increase to $8.75. As it was in 2023, when calculating the municipal levy for 2024, Parkland will be using the population estimates and projections supplied by the Office of Statistics and Information at Alberta Treasury Board and Finance. So in 2022, the Government of Alberta discontinued the municipal affairs population list and now uses these population estimates from the Office of Statistics. Our population estimate has lowered to 7,762 for 2024. I actually called and confirmed that this was the actual correct number that we are being charged with, and it is. So, with the increase in requisition and the decreased population estimate, Parkland Regional Library's budget requisition will be $70,428.96. Sorry. This is an overall increase to our budget of $805.21. And the Parkland Regional Library Board is asking that council consider the proposed budget so that any problems can be addressed at their board meeting on November 16th, 2023. I'll take any questions council may have.
Okay, thank you, Director Vickers. Could I please have someone make the recommended motion? Councillor Wing?
Yes, Mayor Barkley, I would recommend that council approve the Parkland Regional Library 2024 budget.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Councillor Bates?
Yeah, just a comment, since I've been on council, goes back quite a ways. Quite often, somebody in the region brings up the fact that we're always approving their budget before we do our own budgets. And I remember one year, probably 7, 8 years ago, that there was actually a couple of communities that were trying to block it because of that. And so I only bring it up because I've never seen it where they didn't have it well documented, what they were trying to do and why, and but it's always that awkwardness that we're approving it before we ever do our own budget. And so I'm just kind of raising it for everyone else to realize that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? No? All in favor? All right, carried unanimous. And we will move on to 7.1 with Director Jenkins.
Thank you, Mayor Barkley. So today we're looking for council approval of the 2023 Housing Needs Assessment. The project was aimed to provide a better understanding of specific residential needs within the community and serves as an update to the 2017 Housing Discussion Paper and provides necessary information for contribution to the Provincial Affordable Housing Needs Assessment. Council did receive the draft in August for review. Since that time, it has been circulated to various council committees for awareness and comments. So just a quick sort of refresher on the document. The document provides an overview of the existing town plans and bylaws, an in-depth consideration of demographics and the current state of housing in the community. The assessment is intended to form the basis of future housing-related actions, including policy development for the current MDP review, land use bylaw amendments, and promotion of current initiatives such as the infill incentive and other potential projects. So the report identifies an unmet housing need in the community of 27 or more single or semi-detached units, 31 or more dwelling units consisting of apartments or row housing, and 29 plus of subsidized community dwelling units. In addition, to keep pace with projected demand, an additional 81 dwelling units are identified to be required by 2031. So there's not a lot in the document that's overly surprising in terms of our understanding of our housing needs. The report does go on to include some general recommendations for further review and prioritization into actions. So those focus on the rental market, so looking at ways to expand 1 and 2 bedroom units, either through the support of reconditioning of existing units or encouragement of new construction, expansion and promotion of secondary suites and other innovative living arrangements. So that's something primarily either achieved through land use bylaw reviews or incentive programs. And then creation of a comprehensive action plan. That one comes up basically under every one of these headings. So then with respect to subsidized housing, so creating an action plan to identify the town's goals related to non-market or affordable housing, and to continue to work with community housing providers to find approaches to develop smaller units. With respect to home ownership, monitor core housing need rates for homeowners to ensure home ownership rates remain strong as they currently are, and then create a comprehensive plan that clearly establishes the town's desired role and objectives in the residential land development space. Seniors housing, again, looking for an action plan to identify specific needs associated with seniors, and then continuing to enhance relationships with Parkland Foundation, Bethany, and AHS to collectively advocate for seniors housing investment in the community. So those are sort of the high-level recommendations. There are some potentials for some quick wins or things that were already sort of in the works with respect to housing development. So again, policies and actions for the recondition or removal of derelict properties. So with respect to the tax review process that Corporate Services is currently undergoing, there will be a potential to evaluate the potential to look at various tax implications for vacant or derelict properties, continued promotion of the infill development incentive program and infill development itself, and then looking at partnerships and support for individual developers or landowners with that redevelopment potential, as well as through sort of council's strategic and budget process, looking at whether we want to look to expand the construction of units within Napoleon Meadows, similar to what was done in Hazelwood, and then developing an action strategy around the southwest residential area. So again, this assessment will form the basis of future housing initiatives, and a housing action plan would inform other plans and policies. So the MDP, our ACTEV strategy, all of those, this document will inform those as we move forward. Just for note, the development stats to date were also included in your council package. So I'm just going to get to that page. There. So just essentially there for any comments or questions from council as well. We currently are on track to exceed total building permit value year over year from 2022, and have exceeded by one creation of residential units. But we didn't build 4 of them this year, so that's a positive. So I'll take any questions.
Okay, thanks, Director Jenkins. So with this, like, how do you see we proceed with potentially a housing strategy? I mean, we have Bella Vista, we have the new R4 neighborhood, we have Hazelwood. You know, we also have to be careful that we don't saturate it as well and turn off some of these private developers. So how do we proceed? How, like, bringing a Bethany in to speak with us and kind of see where their mindset is at. And I know have had some, you know, kind of informal discussions even with our MLA, like, is Innisfail interested in seniors housing? And so how do we get all this moving, or what would you recommend?
I think there's two sort of prongs. I think the private market rate housing is sort of a different conversation than the seniors and the non-market, where I think there's definitely potential for us to create some strategies and some objectives. You know, where do we want to be with the Red Deer Housing Foundation? What kind of ways can we work to either support the creation of additional units, if that's what we'd like to see, sort of that part in the non-market space, versus where we're working more with respect to sort of policy changes, land use bylaw processes to support those private development projects. Yeah, I think we're doing a lot of work in that space, updating policies, doing that work. You know, we have movement in a couple of those development areas where it's really, unless there needs to be sort of that, again, philosophical discussion of whether the town wants to be involved in the development process ourselves as a land developer, we're really sort of kind of shaping through policy that other discussion.
So do you think we need to go down the road of having like a formal housing strategy after, or not necessarily? That's kind of why I'm asking.
I like more, I think, sort of an action plan. I think that we don't necessarily need to reinvent the wheel with a whole nother strategy process. But that if we break it out sort of in that market and non-market as to what we want to do as those actions over the next sort of 3 to 5 years.
This is a question probably for Director Vickers, and it sounds like an awful question, and it's not coming off the way I mean it to, but so the non-market housing, social housing, is that housing property tax exempt? Okay.
Mayor Barkley, yes, it is. If it's through the registered program, and normally they're run by like a Red Deer Housing Authority or something like that, then yes, they are exempt.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Any other? Councillor Bates.
Yeah, one question. If I'm looking at the what we heard page with the puzzle of the little house developers, landlords, realtors, employers, and the one question that comes to mind in the developers side, because we wouldn't have engaged yet with the R4 when this was done, what developers were consulted to get this input? Just the 3 that we potentially had, or others outside that might still be looking at Innisfail, or?
So all of our current developers holding holding larger land were invited to participate. I believe Bella Vista, like Creation, was the only group that actively participated in the stakeholder sessions.
Okay, because they're probably the only active builder right now of those three.
Apart from sort of our Dodds Lake North.
The R4 which came in.
Yeah.
And then one other thought that occurs to me, I think I mentioned it once before, but government at any level that I'm watching housing doesn't seem to be looking at housing in any way connected to the oncoming push for electric vehicles. And that, if it happens, and is going to require the building of garages like we've never seen before in order to accommodate the electric vehicles for home charging. And it's just something I want to keep raising, because if I didn't have a garage, I wouldn't own one. And we're all being told that 20% of what is sold by 2025, I think, and then 100% by, so there's going to be a need. And it would be a good experience for us, now that we have the plug-in hybrid, to ask ourselves throughout this winter, if we had an outside lot that was secure, would we ever store it there? And I'm betting any money will come to the conclusion that we wouldn't, because you wouldn't be able to charge it in a lot of situations. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Wing.
Thanks, Mayor Barkley. So through to both CAO Becker and Director Jenkins, I think, and I'll go back to my earlier question about about having some kind of engagement with our developers, builders, realtors, etc. It's alarming actually to hear that we only had the developers from Bella Vista participate in this process, because there's so much going on in other communities, and it just doesn't, it feels like there's groups, builders, developers that just aren't seeing us on their radar screen at all. And as much as I'd love the opportunity to sit down with them with, the report and a map and talk about the opportunities, I'd as much like to hear from them back as to what the issue is, why they're not coming, why they're not building in Innisfil. Because I think that's a huge concern for me, for sure. So I would like a reminder as to why we decided we weren't going to do that piece of work, and I suspect it was because we were doing this body of work, and now that we've got it done, I wonder if that doesn't open the door to a future conversation. And then just my other question before you come back to me with that, have we had any conversations with any of the private market options for seniors, like the private housing facilities that are all over the place, or are we only looking at Alberta Health Services and Bethany? And
We have not approached any private seniors housing, as
maybe,
far as I'm aware.
and maybe that would be a group then that we might consider including in a broader conversation, because we talk about our demographics for age and gender, and we certainly have seniors that are motivated here to get moved into something that suits their needs. So anyways, just my thought.
Mayor Barkley, to Councillor Wing's comments, just in relation to the other developers, I think it's each developer had engagements with each one of them specifically, and I don't think it's really suited for public conversation. I'd be happy to share more detail in those engagements in a camera session, whether it's now leading into potential action or later in camera. There's some references to residential developments of some sort in camera. Maybe I wouldn't mind maybe prepping you a little bit more information at that time.
Councillor Heisted.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of comments Councillor Wing has brought up today, and I would welcome the in-camera session so that we're all aligned with housing. And as to building another, this is great work, Director Jenkins. I think this is a really good opportunity for us as a council to kind of figure out what those action items, the action plan is, in consultation with in-camera as to what discussions have taken place. So thank you.
Okay. Councillor Dunham.
Thank you, Mayor Barkley. Through to Director Jenkins. Last week, I believe it was, you brought forth a little bit of information on the infills that were happening around town, and I'm just wondering, I'm trying to remember off the top of my head, last year I think we adjusted it that there was $30,000 available for the infill program, and you've had 2 so far this year?
We have, I believe one of them was actually paid out of last year's. Budget, and yeah, they can go up to 30,000 if there's multiple units as part of the development. So it's 15 if you're essentially just redeveloping a single-family house on the lot. If it's a multifamily project, you can get up to 30,000 to cover those costs. Typically, the costs associated with what makes infill more expensive, which is some of the, whether you have to do asbestos abatement before you demolish it, you have to demolish it, you have to get a grading plan or drainage plan done for those properties, those types of things. The payment doesn't come until it's finished. Like, we pay on receipts, so it's typically, you know, there's a couple in construction right now, but those likely wouldn't be completed until 2024. Those ones would come in as applications through the incentive program. So.
Okay. Another couple questions. Were those the first 2 that utilized that program, that incentive?
Yes.
Yes, okay, thought so.
And that program was new in, I think it was 2019.
2019,
then,
so we're
yeah,
looking
not
about
a whole
4
lot
years.
happened there.
Okay. And then finally, do we know, are they building them to rent, to sell, or for occupancy?
I believe the 2 that are currently under construction are being built for occupancy.
For occupancy, okay. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. We'll just have somebody, did somebody make the motion? We need somebody to make the motion. Councillor Hystad?
Yeah, I'll make the motion that council approves the 2023 housing needs assessment as presented.
Perfect, thank you. All in favor? All right, carried, thanks. So we will move into council reports now. We'll begin with Councillor Wing today.
Thanks, Mayor Barkley. Yeah, it was a pretty quiet week. I am participating on the Parkland Regional Library Compensation Policy Working Group, so we had attended a full-day meeting on that matter last Thursday. It's an interesting process, of course, as they try to modify and bring up to date the entire compensation, the grids, and the way it all works with the group that work there. But it's a good organization, and I think they've really been doing a good job. So yeah, enjoyed a Thanksgiving weekend, and we're looking forward to another quiet week ahead to get over the turkey.
Okay, Councillor Dunham?
Thank you, Mayor Barkley. Last Thursday, I attended the Community Economic Development Committee meeting. Blaine Staples, President of the Chamber, did a verbal presentation of the strategic plan. We had a couple updates from Manager Straw regarding the rural renewal and rural entrepreneurial stream. The rural renewal, I believe there's about 137 different applications through that, which was wonderful to see. We also had a request for the committee to do the municipal developer plan long form for some feedback. As we saw today, the housing needs assessment report was presented. We also had the Red Deer County 2023 or 2030 economic development strategy. And then we also got to have a look at the 2022 annual report for Innisfail. And that was all for me last week.
All right, thank you. Councillor Hystad?
Thanks. Last week I was at the Historical Village meeting. This week, just on a personal note, Innisfail Welcoming Committee is going to have a cultural event this Saturday at the Innisfail Learning Center. And then if you're all curious to check out some new art in the community between the new and used, in that alleyway that I keep on commenting on graffiti and stuff, it actually has been cleaned up a bit and it looks really nice. And yeah, turkey, lots of turkey and ham, and the week's going to be over before you know it. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Maceros?
Thank you, Mayor Barkley. So last week I helped with Councillor Hystad and Mayor Barkley to pass out turkey dinner at St. Marguerite's. That was fun. And then on Sunday, I presented with Mayor Barkley a birthday congratulations to Pat Newman, and that was really nice. Other than that, it was pretty quiet week. And this week I'm going to go to the function on the 12th and go there partly to represent council, but also partly as a citizen to understand my own bills. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Bates.
Okay, so last week I was up first and I wasn't prepared to talk about things that happened at AB Munis. So I am now. But actually, I had attended, and of course I didn't get a chance to talk because I was already talked. I had attended the Dan Jones Digging Up the Roots as well, which was reported on very well, and the Muni election party involvement. My takeaway there, majority don't want or believe would be as functional. The other one I attended, and it sounded like I was the only one, was the council and the CAO bargain, and it was a strange title, but it was a round table with Bow Island and Three Hills CAOs and as a panel, and lots of questions, and they were just reviewing a lot of their experiences, some of which were very humorous and some not so humorous, but some of my takeaways, and again, this was from that course, and it's just interesting. CAOs are very variable. Their career paths, their education, there's really no pat description of a CAO. They evolve and they become what they are, and then they get hired off to another community. They lead up to council, they lead down to staff, and they lead out to every other town connection that the town gets involved in. There was quite a bit of discussion about council learning the role of their jobs before election and how that would be so helpful to CAOs. And it was discussed that some CAOs' natures are proactive, others are neutral, and others are reactive, and they had a Mensa voting with our phones, and the result of that, of the folks in the room, 77% felt they were in a proactive council with their CAO, and 9% neutral and 3% reactive. I'm pretty sure I was proactive. It was a secret ballot. And they did talk about the best council orientation being a really good pre-election, and I think we did have a pretty good one the last time, and I think we've gotten better from the time that I've been here. Followed by, the orientation, either AM or the cuff type or both, and that avoids code of conduct issues, coincidentally. Yeah, and all councils and communities are different, and the CAOs adapt, and fight or flight, right? And another aspect of CAOs is the public perception of them and the amount of interaction that they choose to do. And again, that usually is something that adapts and or is driven by the council. There were 2 or 3 other noted things. Council members ultimately get the same information as the mayor. And the mayor, assuming all of that, should be the normal media spokesperson. Yeah, and we all need to be at whatever point that we finish our strat plan united, and that was noted. My summary is that we're in a pretty good place. So I took that away. I have the Mountain View Regional Water meeting tomorrow where we start the budget and also do a regular meeting. Councillor Harrison asked me to just mention that he's being asked, and the RDR MUG is being, they are working on considering lobbying for a strategic storage, another storage facility on the Red Deer River. So we'll hear more about that down the road. I plan to attend the utilities Thursday, both for my own bill and to learn. And I believe there's a fire department breakfast on Saturday that I plan to go to as well. And that's it.
Everybody looks surprised at your last comment. Breakfast? No? Nobody knows? Okay. Yeah.
Is there not one?
I don't know. No idea. Have not heard of it. Hopefully the barbecue will be ready.
You can strike that from the record if it doesn't come up.
Okay, so last week I spent one day at a recovery summit in Red Deer. There was over 300 participants, including recovery warriors, so that's what they refer to, people who are in recovery, and I learned that recovery means that you haven't taken a step backwards and you could be in recovery for 30 years, but you're always in recovery, you're never done. So there was recovery warriors, nonprofits, professionals, and government. The day was centered around the recovery-oriented system of care that they refer to as ROSC. And the 4 pillars of the system are home, health, purpose, and community. The model is the opposite of the current system that has hundreds of disconnected short-period programs, most directed by professionals, and is difficult to access due to the long wait times. ROSC provides choice in a multitude of person-centered pathways to recovery. It's self-directed recovery centers around housing, employment, school, jails, and shelters, trained recovery, case managers, and recovery coaches. So people that are in recovery are now the professionals. And there's community-based education, and really the importance around community connection rather than judgment, which is really what makes it such a strength. Dr. Paul Sobey was speaking at one of the breakout sessions. Dr. Sobey's been in recovery for 30 years from opioid addiction. I always have a hard time saying that word for some reason. It's kind of like pecuniary. But anyway. His journey began around age 12. 18 years he struggled. Of course, had issues with his professional body, needless to say, patients, colleagues around his addiction. But he stated the connection and hope were really the contagion for him that led him through a process of recovery. The rest of that breakout session featured Kath Hoffman from Safe Harbor in Red Deer, Reed Charbonneau, Turning Point Red Deer, Ben Borger, clinical manager at the Red Deer Recovery Center, Sarah Fletcher, who's a registered nurse, AHS Addiction and Mental Health, and Samantha Shortneck, who is a recovery warrior mom and has 2 sons. And they spoke around the importance of housing, transportation, job, income, food security are all areas that are a requirement to recovery. And the shame and stigma that people receive just drive them further into addiction. And the message from that session was the community really needs to shine our light on these people and help them. There was a woman by the name of Dr. Alina Turner. She was a keynote speaker in the afternoon. She's a co-founder of Help Seeker, a social enterprise focused on scaling systems innovation to accelerate social change in Canada. And Dr. Turner led the implementation of Canada's first homelessness management information system and designed Calgary's housing first system of care. Some of the highlights from Dr. Turner's presentation, which are a bit disturbing. So the rise in novel psychoactive substances, she refers to them as NPS. Accidental drug deaths in Alberta in 2016 were 554, in 2022 were 874, and I believe this year they're well up into over 1,500. Increasing diversity in toxicology reports, so people are mixing more, and Alberta is adding more new drugs than anywhere in Canada. An example of this is a drug called xylazine. It's a veterinarian drug, and it's now showing up in Edmonton's wastewater. Online ordering is prolific, so importing from India, China, Moldova. Canadians are buying base products and now exporting those to the U.S., so Canada is becoming an exporter, and they're seeing children as young as 10 into trafficking. So needless to say, somewhat sobering, but it's wonderful to see the city of Red Deer really leading the province in this area. Of course, there's a new recovery center up in the north end, and we've been invited to attend. I believe Juanita sent an invitation out today from a letter that was received last week. So I'm hoping that people will be interested, because certainly, you know, we don't have the wraparound services in this community, but it was great that manager of FCSS, Kristen, could attend the recovery day last week as well, and it was a good day. As Councillor Dunham mentioned, had the Community Economic Development meeting last week. It was great to see all committee members present, and Manager Shaw took us through the various reports. As Councillor Dunham mentioned, the rural renewal and rural entrepreneur streams, there's been 125 letters of support issued, with 56% of candidates being from outside of Canada. And those letters of support potentially represent $4.8 million in annual salaries for the Innisfail region. Introduced the MDP long form survey, which you already heard about, and I won't get into that any more because Councillor Dunham covered it. And feedback from advisory group members was around how robust the economy is in Alberta right now. It's difficult to keep up to the demand that they're experiencing due to labor shortages. So it sounds like full speed ahead if we just had the labor in place. Then, as Councillor Maceras mentioned, attention St. Marguerite's on Friday for the luncheon, so thank you to Councillor Heistad for setting that up. And I also want to know if council is interested in a tour of the Child Advocacy Centre, the Central Alberta Child Advocacy Centre in Red Deer. So I'd mentioned that had a presentation about that, and then Rick Moore was at Rotary last week and talking about his daughter Lindsay, of course, and Smiles Through Lindsay. So if you'd like to do that, we can certainly set it up. I think it'd be really advantageous to go see this wonderful new facility, and it was even talked about at the Recovery Summit last week, because of course trauma needs to be dealt with, otherwise people can go into addiction. So would people like to go if possible? Some head nods, yeah, okay. Okay. Did you want a motion for that, CO Becker, or not really? You can just set that up. And
Yeah, we can just set it up.
yeah, perfect. Okay. All right. Okay, and also, of course, crashed Pat Newman's birthday party on Sunday. That was a lot of fun, and going strong at 90 without question, so all good. So we'll go into upcoming events. And the Cape Board meeting typically gets started around 8:30 for future reference. So just have a motion, please. Yes. Councillor Bates.
I'll make the motion, but we've also had an invitation, I think, for October 17th for MDP.
Yeah, since this.
Okay, and in that same invitation, I think there was one for November 21, which I believe is the first day of budget deliberations. I did respond to make sure that person knew that was a potential conflict. Okay, so with that, I'll make the motion to accept these upcoming events for information.
Okay, thank you. All in favor? Perfect, and then we'll just have a motion to go in camera, please. Councillor Dunham?
I'll make
Oh, sorry.
1, 2, 3, 4. I declare a thumb war. Go ahead.
I'll make the motion to go in camera, Mayor Barkley.
Thank you. All in favor?